I am building a collection of viable, or almost viable, cheap bike tools from AliExpress. And in the last video, we tested a bunch of them. Some of them didn't work. I have thrown them into my AliExpress scrap tool bin, kept the ones that worked, and now today we're gonna test a whole bunch more. Let's just get right into it. First up, we've got a whole chain repair kit here for $7.86. This comes with a chain tool, master link pliers, and a chain wear indicator, along with one of those wire thingies that holds the chain together. Now, if you remember, in our last video, we tested 2 chain tools, neither of which actually worked. One of them bent, and the other one would only work with an 8-speed or below chain. I've got 3 chains here to test: 11-speed, 12-speed, and I've even got a T-type right over here. So let's see if it works. Let's start off with the boring stuff. Chain wear indicator. The way this works is you put it in the chain, and then the deeper this probe goes into the link, the more worn out your chain is. And so this is pretty new, barely goes in at all. I don't know how accurate this is, but it seems accurate enough. Now, another thing this chain wear indicator has, these 2 little hooks here, so you can actually hold the chain together while doing a repair, I believe. Yeah, so we can test our master link pliers, which I suspect work just fine. Boom, they work perfectly. Put it back together, pull them outwards to re-engage the link. So far, this little kit seems to be working well, but does the chain tool work? So we'll start with the 11-speed chain. Can we pop a link out with this? So I'll take our 11-speed chain, put it here on the fence. Oh, it fits. Oh, I have a good feeling about this. Look at that. No problem. Okay, it works for 11-speed. Does it work for 12-speed? All right, 12-speed chain's a little narrower, and sometimes they don't fit. Yes, the 12-speed one fits. I think it's gonna work. Yes, the 12-speed works perfectly, but we still have a final test. T-type chains are relatively new. They work with SRAM transmission. Supposed to be able to work on them with any 12-speed compatible chain tool, so let's see if it works. For around $8, this is kind of a home run. You have a chain tool that works very, very well. Master link pliers, of course, work. And the chain wear indicator, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's like worn or not worn is sort of what you need to know. Great, good job. So these get added to our working bike tools pile over here, our AliExpress tool collection. And then we're gonna test this stuff. $8.75 worth of bike cleaning supplies. Looks good. So if you've ever bought a bike-specific cleaning kit, what you'll know is they're quite good. Almost all of them are good. It's just a bunch of different sized brushes. And this one seems to be pretty good so far too. It's got all different shaped brushes, nice stiff bristles. You can get into different spots on the bike. Just makes it a lot easier to clean. I'm getting this bike a lot cleaner than I normally do with like my one hardware store brush. So far so good, but we still have to clean up the chain. That's what this is for. This is a chain cleaner. So you can see on the inside, there's a series of brushes and even gears so that as you run the chain through, it actually engages with these little teeth in here and scrubs it as you pedal. And so you can put your chain cleaner of choice in here and we'll get that chain nice and clean. It's not the best chain cleaner I've used. It's kind of tricky. Maybe it's because it's a T-type chain. I don't know, but it works. I mean, we just cleaned the dog food out of this bike. It's about as clean as it was the day I got it. I say for $8 or whatever this was, it's a win. It works. Don't get it for the chain cleaner, but everything else is awesome. Wow, not bad. So this thing Very interesting description here on the AliExpress. Portable high-pressure 300 PSI bike air pump with gauge for fork and rear suspension shock absorber mountain bicycle. So I have our portable high-pressure 300 PSI bike air pump with gauge for fork and rear suspension shock absorber mountain bicycle right here, and we're gonna test it out. Even if you have a cheap air fork, setting it to pressure is essential. And so a good shock pump has a gauge, it has a little bleed button, and it has a Schrader head that you can screw on, and it should pump up in very small increments because air springs don't actually hold a lot of air. So you can't just use a floor pump to do it accurately. Now this doesn't look that bad. We're gonna test it out and then we're gonna see how accurate it is by comparing it to a good pump. So we'll take off this little air cap here. All right, we'll screw it on here. That's good that this piece moves because you always have to get it into the right position. Okay, so far so good. So it says I have about 75 PSI in there, which seems a little bit low. I could have lost some air. Let's try and pump it up to 85. Now, I purposely inflated it to 100 because I want to show you this feature. This little red button, okay, that's not ideal. So this red button lets out air so you can bring the air back down. If you get a pump from RockShox or Lezyne, usually one press takes out a tiny little burp of air. In this case, just lets out all the air, and so you kind of have to time it yourself. Better than nothing. So what I hope is that there's 80 PSI in here. I have this digital pump from RockShox. We're gonna use it to check it. Wow, this pump is way nicer. Just making an observation. Okay, so it says 76. I know that when you take these on and off, it loses a little bit of air, and so I did overinflate it a little bit. You gotta overinflate it by like probably 8 or 10 PSI to really get it right. I mean, to set the pressure on your Recon or entry-level fork, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, you're not gonna get perfect exact measurements, but it works. It's just, you can get a decent suspension pump for $30. I know that's more than twice as much as that pump, but $30, you can keep it forever. I just don't think it's worth getting a $13 suspension pump. Next up, cone wrenches. Whole set of cone wrenches for $15.21. Score! I got a whole bunch of plastic Ziploc bags too. I could actually use those. And they're made by Boy! So, cone wrenches. What do you use cone wrenches for? It looks like if you tried to turn anything with one of these wrenches, they would just, you know, break because they're so thin. You're mainly going to use these for hub service. I'm going to show you in a second. One thing that's kind of cool about these cone wrenches is there is a hex in the middle of the same size. And so I guess you could use it to turn a bolt without it slipping off. That's kind of cool. I don't know how well these are made or whether they're hardened or anything, but it looks like they would work for hub service. So let's service the hub on the front of the Ozark Trail Ridge. So older or entry-level hubs just have this threaded axle that goes through them and nuts on the end, and it holds individual ball bearings in. And you can actually take all the ball bearings out, clean them up, pack it with grease, and put it back together, and the hub will run like new. Now you can see here we have this little rubber seal. We can just pull that off. So this just looks like a normal nut. Can't you just take a box wrench and turn it? Well, yeah, you can, but the one underneath it, you can't really get to. And so that's what you need a cone wrench for. This is much thinner and it'll fit right around it. And you can turn these bolts against each other to get them loose. Now, when I was a kid, I serviced hubs without these. And honestly, I don't know how I did it. I think I probably made a lot of marks on the hub. So this is a relatively new hub. I would like it if there was more grease in it. And so, what the hey? Let's take all the ball bearings apart and actually service it. If you're doing hub service, you make sure you got something to catch the ball bearings underneath it because you will never find it on your garage floor. It'd be cool if ball bearings were like Cheetos or something, and you could just send your dog around to find them all, and then he'll just poop them out, and you just use a magnet. I don't know. I think that's all of them. So we'll get all these all cleaned up. So we're gonna load it up with grease and we're gonna stick the balls to the grease. and they do stay in place. And it's as simple as that. Now we'll do the other side. So, it has come to my attention that some of you hate AliExpress. Hate it. And although I see your point, I agree 100% with you. They will just send you something completely different from what you ordered. They will just not send something altogether. And then when you try to rectify the situation, they pull the old does not compute. And so I'm not gonna link to any of these products in the description. Haven't had very much luck with AliExpress. I gotta be perfectly honest, but that's why it's cheap. They do their dirt. This is not a hub service tutorial, but it's worth noting you want the hub to be slightly loose when you're done with it, because when you put the quick release back on it, it pushes it in and it makes it a little bit tighter. Don't want to over tighten it. These cone wrenches did their job just fine. In my shop, cone wrenches are very lightly used, and so I would say these would be good for most people, and for 15 bucks, these are going in my AliExpress toolkit. These brakes are perfectly fine, but we're gonna bleed the levers anyway because I have just the thing for that. So here we have a bleed cup and a syringe with a plunger and several ends. You can actually change the ends for Shimano thread, TRP thread. It's worth noting this syringe, it says for single use only on it, and it has no rubber seals or anything. You go to the drugstore and get like 100 syringes for next to nothing. By AliExpress pricing standards, this is kind of steep. Yeah, I think we're just reviewing the bleed cup. We actually did get some bubbles out of that. Well, this is not very interesting. When you unscrew it, the fluid's gonna come out of the bottom of the funnel, and so they have this plunger. One thing I will note is that the plunger stays in really nice. A lot of bleed cups, the plunger barely stays in place. So we pull this off here. Not bad. So now we'll put the unused fluid back by putting it up here. Yeah, and pulling this out, and it pours in. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, $3 for a pretty good bleed cup with a couple of adapters. I don't know if that's a good deal or a normal deal. It works, but I'm a little bit more excited about the other thing I got for working on hydraulic disc brakes. Barb pusher and hose cutter for $6.97. So hydraulic disc brake systems use these hoses and there are fittings at the end. The tools used for those fittings and cutting the hose are not always so cheap. This one is. I said it was $6.97. Let's see if it can cut a hose first. Okay, so we're gonna lay our hose down in here, push it down. They don't give us that much leverage. Oh, okay. That actually worked better than some other tools I have. I mean, that cuts clean as anything. That's great. Can we push a barb into it? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the end of the hose has a little fitting that's called a barb. There's actually a barb, an olive, and then a nut. But pushing the barb is the hard part. I'll show you why. So to push in a barb, I usually take a pick and just kind of clean up the end of the hose, push the little barb in a tiny bit, and then use a barb pusher for the rest of this. Good luck doing this by hand. Now, you could like hold the hose with a needle nose plier and tap on it. I used to do that before I had the right tools. So let's see if this little barb pusher can push barbs. It doesn't have a handle like the Park Tool one. You just screw it in, but it does clamp the hose down quite nicely. And now we should be able to push the barb in by screwing this in. Appears to work. Not bad. I mean, this is a specialty tool. I will say it marked up the hose a little bit more than the Park Tool one did, but I think this connection would work. It looks fine to me, and it's $7. You have a cutter and a barb pusher. I think this one's a win. Next up, this cable housing cutter. Now, in the last video, I showed how a good set of pliers with cutters can actually accomplish this task, and they didn't work. The ones we got from AliExpress were not sharp enough to cut housing, but these are made for housing. So let's check them out. They have this little guy, they're spring loaded. So let's unhook it. They don't open, let's give them a little help. What did these cost? $5.16. These are astonishingly bad. Let's try it. Okay, so we have a piece of cable. We gotta kind of push them wide enough to get it in there. Oh my God. Oh, these are so bad. It just folds it in half. All right, now I know why these cost so much. Yeah, it's even got this little reamer thing at the end. Are these for hydraulic brake hose? No, these aren't sharp enough to cut noodles. I know where these are going. All right, what do we got next? And then we have a little soft hammer, a mallet, $7.80. That actually seems steep for something this simple, but it's just heavy and they gotta ship it for free. And so I think that's why it costs this much. It's got two ends. They appear to be the same exact durometer. One is not harder than the other. There's just a clear one and an opaque one. They both kind of screw onto the end here. Maybe we'll put a little thread locker in there. Yeah, it's got some good weight to it, and it's for hitting stuff. Hey, it's $7.80. How bad could it be? Let's try it. All right, let's hammer a bar end into the old Ozark Trail Ridge. One smack. I can hit the bike pretty hard with it without it damaging anything, so that's good. I don't really know how to test this. Let me see how much it gets damaged if I hit some bad stuff with it. Here, I'll smack it around on the edge of my bench vise here. Yeah, it's pretty marked up. Not as marked up as I thought. You would never, what am I saying? You do this with a mallet. Usually the purpose of this is to hit something without damaging it or scratching it up. Yeah, usually when I'm using a mallet, it's not been a good day. This one seems fine for $7.80. They're usually a lot more than that. Will these things hold up? I don't know. Will they dry rot? Will they deteriorate over time by just existing? Probably. But yeah, it's $7.80 and you can hit stuff with it. All right, what do we got here next? Looks like a shock cap Ninja Star from our friends at Tupri. Yeah, it's a Ninja Star of shock caps. Like on a RockShox fork or a Fox fork, you have these really big hexes. I gotta admit, I'm a little bit skeptical. This was $3.90, so good deal. Looks like you can turn little Suntour caps with it and everything. But a Fox fork, the cap on the air spring, you're gonna be able to turn it with this. Let's try it. I got a Fox 34 right over here. So they went through the trouble. It's got a little recess here and it fits down over the top of it and it doesn't slip off. Like, good design. Look, I'm not even gonna try and take this off. I'm just gonna try and crack it loose. It does fit on really nice. No. Okay, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let me try to really push this on. No, this is a fail. That's ridiculous. So between the last video and this one, our AliExpress toolkit is starting to grow quite nicely. We have these hex wrenches that I really liked from the last video. I actually brought these to Utah with me and used them to put together my bike. The kit that had the Masterlink pliers, the chain wear checker, and the chain tool was a huge hit. These Masterlink pliers were really good, but we found really cheap ones in the last video. I don't know, if you were just getting Masterlink pliers, I'd say this one, but the Barb pusher and cutter was a surprise star. This one worked great in every way. The mallet, you can hit stuff with it. This crank puller is not the one that I tested in the last video. I bought this separately for like 50 cents more, and it's a lot better. And then we have the cassette tool and this thing, which is barely viable, but it works. And we didn't spend a whole lot on it. In fact, what did all this stuff in front of me cost? I'm coming up with like $60.50. All the cleaning stuff is still outside. It's all wet, and so I left it on the bike wash station. You can get toolkits on Amazon for 40 bucks or whatever, but They have the crappy stuff also. We mixed and matched and got some decent stuff. Those kits rarely come with a mallet, if ever. They definitely don't come with a barb pusher. Definitely don't come with a full set of cone wrenches. All of these are viable tools. I tested everything, and even stuff like the bleed cup that I didn't think was the best deal, I put it out. I'm gonna keep searching for stuff that I think is a good deal, and then I'm gonna add it all up and figure out how much it would cost as a kit. I don't know why I do this, guys. It's just, I have like a sick fascination with it. Yeah, I'm an animal. It is a dream come true to make these videos for a living. I love doing this stuff. And if you enjoy watching it, well, you can watch it 2 weeks earlier on Substack. We post everything from both of our YouTube channels 2 weeks early on Substack, and we post additional context as well as dedicated articles written by some of the most interesting voices in mountain biking. Even if you sign up on our free tier, sometimes we post a freebie. I hope you enjoyed checking out bunch of janky AliExpress tools. I think we ended up with some pretty decent ones over here. I hope you learned something today, and if you didn't, I hope you at least found this video entertaining. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time. I think I did find one good use for this. Oscar! Get it! Go get it! Go get it! Go get it! You see it? Get it!